The Talvik orbital station smelled like rust and desperation. G1 walked through the crowded marketplace with his hands in his jacket pockets, trying to ignore the sounds around him. Screams, laughter, the electric hum of shock collars. This place made his stomach turn, but he needed supplies, and this was the only station within 3 jumps that sold fuel cells at a reasonable price. Hyan walked beside him, his eyes scanning the crowd with the practiced awareness of someone who had spent too many years in dangerous places. They had been crew together for 5 years now, ever since they both left the Earth Defense Force. Hyan was the first person G1 hired when he bought the salvage ship, and he trusted him with his life. "Let's just get the parts and leave," Hyan muttered. "This place gets worse every time we visit." G1 nodded but didn't answer. They turned a corner and found their path blocked by a crowd. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species pressed together, shouting and waving credit chips in the air. At the center of the chaos stood a raised platform with heavy metal restraints built into the floor. An auction. G1's jaw tightened. He started to turn away when the auctioneer's voice boomed through speakers. "Next lot. Oh, this one is special, friends. Very special indeed." Something in the voice made G1 stop. He looked back at the platform and felt his breath catch in his throat. They dragged her onto the stage in chains. She was tall, taller than any human, with skin that shimmered like polished silver in the harsh station lights. Her body was covered in burns and scars, some fresh and still bleeding. But it was her back that drew gasps from the crowd. 2 stumps protruded from her shoulder blades, ragged and torn. Her wings had been cut off. The auctioneer, a massive Voskan with dark purple scales and 4 arms, grabbed her by the neck and forced her to her knees. She didn't resist. She didn't even seem to notice. "Behold, an Avari!" And not just any Avari, but Queen Myray herself. The auctioneer's voice dripped with mock reverence. Once she ruled the 4th moon of the Avari dominion. Thousands bowed before her. Now she bows before us. The crowd roared with laughter. Some threw garbage at the stage. Myray didn't move. Her eyes stared at nothing, empty and dead. Her world tried to resist the Voskan accord. The auctioneer continued. They thought their honor and their precious wings would save them. Lord Cowarth taught them otherwise. He burned their cities, enslaved their children, and saved this one for last. The proud queen who swore she would never surrender. From the front row, a Voskan warlord stood up. He was even larger than the auctioneer, covered in armor decorated with Avari feathers. Cowarth. G1 recognized him from wanted posters. The Galactic Council claimed he was too powerful to touch, operating in neutral zones where their laws meant nothing. Cowarth smiled at the broken queen on the stage. "I could have killed her quickly," he said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "But death would have been mercy." The Avari believe that honor is everything. Without honor, they cannot live. So I took hers. I took her crown, her wings, her people, her dignity. Now she is nothing. Just empty flesh waiting to die. He sat back down, looking satisfied. The auctioneer nodded. Indeed. Normally, Avari slaves fetch high prices. They are strong, intelligent, and skilled. But this one, he kicked Myray in the ribs. She fell to her side but made no sound. This one is broken. She hasn't eaten in weeks. Hasn't spoken. Hasn't even tried to escape or fight. The Avari die without honor. Everyone knows this. So I'm starting the bid low. Consider her a curiosity, a conversation piece. The queen who fell. 100 credits, someone shouted. The crowd laughed. It was an insult. 100 credits wouldn't buy a decent meal on this station. 50 credits, another voice called, and the laughter grew louder. G1 felt Hyan's hand on his arm. "Don't," Hyan whispered. We can't save everyone. You know that. Ji-won did know that. He had seen countless horrors in his years traveling the outer sectors. The galaxy was full of suffering, and one man with a salvage ship couldn't fix it all. He had learned to walk away, to focus on what he could control, to not let the darkness consume him. But something about this was different. Maybe it was the empty look in Moray's eyes. Maybe it was Calreth's satisfied smile. Maybe it was the way the crowd treated her suffering as entertainment, or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe he was just tired of walking away. 20 credits, someone yelled. For scrap value. The auctioneer shrugged. 20 credits then. Going once, going twice. 200 credits, Ji-won called out. The marketplace fell silent. Heads turned to look at him. Hyan closed his eyes and sighed. The auctioneer blinked in surprise, then grinned. 200. We have 200 credits from the human. Anyone else? No one bid. 200 credits was still nothing, but it was more than anyone wanted to pay for what they saw as a worthless slave who would probably die within days anyway. Sold. To the human. The auctioneer laughed. Enjoy your purchase, friend. Though I doubt she'll last a week. Calreth stood up and walked over to Ji-won. Up close, he was terrifying. Each of his 4 arms could probably break a human in half. His eyes were cold and calculating. You waste your credits, human, Calreth said. She is already dead. Her spirit broke when I burned her wings. The Avari are a proud species. Too proud. Without honor, they are nothing. Without wings, they cannot fly. Without purpose, they cannot live. You have bought a corpse that still breathes. Ji-won met his gaze without flinching. That's my problem, not yours. Calreth laughed, a deep rumbling sound. Indeed, take her. Keep her. Watch her die slowly. It amuses me to know that even in kindness, she will find only suffering. You cannot save what does not wish to be saved. He walked away, his armored boots heavy on the metal floor. The crowd began to disperse, already forgetting about the auction. 2 station workers brought Mireille to Ji-won, her chains rattling. They dropped her at his feet like a sack of cargo. Ji-won knelt down beside her. Her silver skin was covered in grime and dried blood. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes were what struck him most. They were the color of gold, but completely empty. Like looking into abandoned houses where people used to live. Can you walk? He asked gently. She didn't respond. Didn't even look at him. Hyan helped Ji-won lift her to her feet. She stood but seemed barely aware of her surroundings. They guided her through the station toward their ship, and she followed like a ghost, neither resisting nor cooperating. As they walked, Ji-won heard whispers from the crowd. Stupid human. Wasted his money. She'd be dead before they reached the next station. Maybe they were right. Maybe Calreth was right. Maybe he had just spent 200 credits on a lost cause. But Ji-won had learned something during his years in the Defense Force, something that most of the galaxy seemed to have forgotten. People weren't cargo. They weren't numbers on a manifest or items to be traded and discarded. Every person, no matter how broken, still had value, still had the right to choose their own path. He didn't know if Mireille wanted to be saved. He didn't know if she could recover from what had been done to her. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. She deserved a chance to decide for herself. The Taigak was not a beautiful ship. It was old, patched together from parts salvaged from a dozen different vessels, and it rattled when it jumped through hyperspace. But it was home, and it was honest work. Ji-won had bought it with his discharge pay from the Defense Force, and he had spent 5 years making it profitable. Barely profitable, but still. They brought Mireille aboard through the cargo bay. She moved like a puppet with cut strings, her feet dragging on the metal floor. Hyen sealed the airlock behind them and immediately went to the cockpit to prep for departure. The sooner they left Talvik Station, the better. Ji-won guided Mai-Ray to the crew quarters. The ship had 4 small cabins, though only 2 were currently occupied. He showed her to the 3rd cabin, a tiny room with a bed, a small desk, and a storage locker. Basic but clean. "This is yours," he said. "You can rest here." Mai-Ray stood in the doorway, staring at nothing. The chain still hung from her wrists and ankles, connected by a central lock that kept her from moving freely. Ji-won pulled out his tools and began working on the lock. It took him several minutes to crack it, but eventually the chains fell away with a heavy clatter. Mai-Ray looked down at her freed hands. For a moment, something flickered in her golden eyes. Confusion, maybe, or suspicion. Then the emptiness returned and she looked away. "The bathroom is across the hall," Ji-won continued. "There's a shower, towels, basic supplies. When you're ready, there's a med bay 1 level down. Our ship doctor can look at your injuries." Still no response. Myra stood perfectly still, as if waiting for orders or punishment. Ji-won felt a weight settle in his chest. Kalrith had been right about one thing. She was broken in ways that went deeper than the physical scars. He left her there and went to find Yunha, the ship's medic. He found her in the med bay, organizing supplies. Yunha was short and compact, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a tongue even sharper. She had been a military doctor before a dishonorable discharge for refusing to abandon wounded civilians during an evacuation. Ji-won liked her immediately when he heard that story. "We have a new passenger," Ji-won said. "She needs medical attention. Severe malnutrition, multiple wounds, and her wings were removed." Yunha looked up sharply. "Wings? Very?" "Yes, she's in rough shape. I don't know if she accepts help, but we need to try." Yunha grabbed her medical kit. "Show me." They found Mai-Ray still standing in her cabin, exactly where Ji-won had left her. Yunha approached slowly, speaking in a calm, professional voice. "My name is Yunha. I'm a doctor. I'd like to examine your injuries and provide treatment. Is that acceptable?" Mai-Ray said nothing. She didn't move. Yunha looked at Ji-won, who shrugged helplessly. The doctor sighed and began a visual examination, careful not to touch without permission. After a few minutes, she shook her head. Multiple lacerations, severe burns on at least 40% of her body. Malnutrition, dehydration, and the wing removal was done crudely, probably without anesthetic. She should be screaming in pain, but I think she's in shock. Deep psychological trauma. Can you help her? Ji-won asked. I can treat the physical wounds. The rest? Yunha looked at Mai-Ray with something like pity. That's beyond my skills. She needs to want to heal. Right now, I'm not sure she wants anything. Over the next few days, Yunha tried everything. She brought food to Marie's cabin, but it sat untouched. She offered pain medication, but Mai-Ray wouldn't take it. She attempted to clean and bandage the worst wounds, and Mai-Ray let her, but showed no reaction to the pain. It was like treating a corpse. Hyen tried talking to her, sharing stories from his own time in the military, trying to find common ground. Mai-Ray stared through him as if he didn't exist. Ji-won watched it all and felt frustration building. He hadn't expected an instant recovery, but he had hoped for something. Any sign that there was still a person inside that broken shell. On the fourth day, he decided to try a different approach. He went to Marie's cabin early in the morning and knocked on the open door. We need to talk, he said. Mai-Ray sat on her bed, staring at the wall. She had showered at some point, probably because Yunha had insisted, but her hair hung limp and she wore the same plain jumpsuit they had given her. Ji-won pulled the desk chair around and sat down facing her. He didn't try to make eye contact. Instead, he looked at the floor and spoke plainly. I know what you're doing. You're waiting to die. You think that without your honor, without your crown, without your wings, you're already dead. Maybe in a very culture, that's true. Maybe your people would expect you to fade away. But here's the thing. You're not on a very world anymore. You're on my ship. And on my ship, everyone works. He stood up and placed a small tablet on her desk. This contains a list of tasks that need doing. A basic sorting of salvage components. Cleaning and organizing the cargo bay. Simple repairs that don't require technical knowledge. Nothing difficult. You'll work 6 hours a day. In exchange, you get food, shelter, and medical care. Murray's eyes moved slightly, the first real reaction he had seen. She looked at the tablet, then at him. When you've worked enough to pay off your purchase price and your room and board, you're free to leave. Find another ship, start a new life, do whatever you want. But until then, you work. Those are the terms. He walked to the door and paused. I'm not asking you to be a queen. I'm not asking you to be grateful. I'm just asking you to be crew. Think about it. He left before she could respond. Not that he expected her to. The next morning, Ji-won woke to find Mireille standing in the cargo bay, looking at the piles of unsorted salvage. She stood there for a long time, just looking. Then, slowly, she picked up a damaged circuit board and began examining it. It was a small thing. Barely anything at all. But it was movement. It was choice. Ji-won didn't say anything. He just nodded and went about his own work. Over the next week, Mireille worked in silence. She sorted components with mechanical efficiency, never speaking, never asking questions. But she worked. Hyen started leaving small notes on the items that needed sorting, explaining what they were and what they were used for. Mireille read them. Sometimes she sorted the items exactly as the notes suggested. Sometimes she reorganized them in ways that made more sense. It was subtle, but it showed thinking, problem-solving. Yoonha began eating lunch in the cargo bay, not saying much, just being present. After a few days, she started talking about her own past. Her childhood, her time in medical school, her dishonorable discharge. Stories about failure and recovery. Mireille never responded, but Yoonha noticed that she worked more slowly when the doctor was talking, listening. 3 weeks after leaving Talvek Station, they received a distress signal. The Taguk scanners picked it up while they were passing through the Corvus Nebula, a region of space known for pirates and smugglers. Hyen brought the signal to Ji-won in the cockpit. It's an Averi ship. Small transport vessel. They're under attack by pirates. 3 hostile ships. They won't last long. Ji-won studied the readouts. Responding would be dangerous. The Taeguk was a salvage vessel, not a warship. They had some defensive weapons, but going up against 3 pirate ships was suicide. We should report it to the nearest patrol and keep moving, Hyen said. Though his voice lacked conviction, Ji-won knew Hyen was right. It was the smart choice, the safe choice. But he thought about Mireille, working silently in the cargo bay. He thought about Cal Reth's words. You cannot save what does not wish to be saved. Maybe that was true. But maybe it wasn't about saving people. Maybe it was about giving them reasons to save themselves. Set a course for the distress signal, Ji-won said. Are you serious? Very serious. And get Mireille up here. Why? Because she knows Averi tactics better than we do. If we're going to do this stupid thing, we might as well do it smart. Hyen went to the cargo bay and returned with Mireille. She stood in the cockpit doorway, her golden eyes showing the first hint of real awareness Ji-won had seen. There's an Averi transport under attack, Ji-won explained. We're going to help them. But I need to know how Averi ships fight and how they defend themselves. Can you tell me? For a long moment, Mireille said nothing. Then, In a voice rough from disuse, she spoke her first words since coming aboard. "Why would you risk your ship for strangers?" Ji-won met her gaze. "Because we can. Because they need help. Because it's the right thing to do. Take your pick." Myray stared at him, and for the first time, he saw something behind the emptiness. A spark. Small and fragile, but there. "A very transports carry minimal weapons," she said slowly. "They rely on speed and shielding. If they send a distress signal, their shields are already down. They'll try to run, but pirates know this. They'll have disabled the engines first. How would you save them?" Jawan asked. Myray walked to the tactical display. Her hands moved over the controls with remembered skill. The nebula's radiation interferes with sensors. The pirates are probably using visual tracking. If you approach from this angle, with your weapons powered down, they'll read you as debris. When you're close enough, fire everything at the lead ship's engines. While they're confused, the transport can make repairs and jump to hyperspace. Hyen whistled softly. "That might actually work." "Might," Myray said. "Or we might all die." "Your choice, Captain." Ji-won smiled. It was the first time she had called him Captain. The first time she had acknowledged that this was his ship and his decision. "Let's find out," he said. The Corvith Nebula burned with colors that had no names. Purple radiation clouds mixed with streams of gold and crimson gas. Beautiful and deadly. The nebula's energy played hell with ship sensors, which was exactly why pirates loved it. A perfect hunting ground. G1 guided the Taiguk through the clouds, moving slowly to avoid detection. Hyen sat at the weapons console, his fingers hovering over the firing controls. Yoonho was in the medbay, preparing for casualties. Amire stood behind Jaewon's chair, watching the tactical display with an intensity that seemed to burn. "There," she said, pointing at 3 dots on the screen. "The pirate ships. And there, the transport." The very transport vessel tumbled through space, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. It was smaller than the Taiguk, designed for speed rather than combat. 2 of the pirate ships circled it like sharks, firing occasionally to keep it disabled. The 3rd ship had latched onto the transport's airlock, probably boarding it. "They're taking prisoners," Myray said, her voice tight. "A very bring good prices in the slave markets." Ji-won felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger made people sloppy. "Hyen, power down all non-essential systems. Make us look like a piece of drifting debris." "On it," Hyen said. The Taiguk's lights dimmed as systems went offline. They drifted closer, riding the nebula's currents. The pirates didn't notice them. Why would they? The Taiguk looked like just another piece of junk floating in the void. "Wait," Myray said suddenly. "That boarding ship. The whole configuration. I know that ship. You know it?" Ji-won asked. "Captain Doyan. He used to be a merchant trader. When the Voskan invaded a very space, he turned pirate. He raids refugee ships, sells his own people to slavers." Her hands gripped the back of Ji-won's chair, hard enough that her knuckles turned white. "He's a traitor and a coward." "Well," Hyen said, "let's introduce him to some humans." They drifted within firing range. The pirate ships still hadn't noticed them. Ji-won counted down silently. 3, 2, 1, fire. The Taiguk's weapons blazed to life. Plasma cannons tore into the lead pirate ship's engines, ripping through the hull plating. The ship's power core overloaded and exploded in a flash of white light. The other 2 pirate ships immediately broke formation, scrambling to locate the threat. But the nebula's radiation made their sensors useless. They fired blindly into the clouds, hitting nothing. "Myray, tell the transport to get ready to jump." Jawan shouted as he threw the Taiguk into a hard turn. Myray moved to the communications console and opened the channel. She spoke in the Avari language, rapid and commanding. Ji-won didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. That was the voice of someone used to being obeyed. A response came back, shocked and confused. Moray's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Recognition, maybe. Or pain. The second pirate ship found them. Weapons fire raked across the Taeguk's shields, making the whole vessel shudder. Shields at 60%. Hyeon called out, "Return fire! Target their weapons array." The Taeguk spun and fired. Their shots hit the pirate ship's starboard weapons, disabling 2 of its 3 gun batteries. The pirate ship veered away, trailing sparks, but the third ship, Doyen's ship, had detached from the transport and was accelerating toward them. It was larger than the other 2, heavily armed and armored. "That's a problem," Hyeon said, his usual calm voice tight with stress. Mirai studied the tactical display. "He's overconfident. He thinks you're just another salvage ship, easy prey. He'll try to disable you quickly and take you intact. He wants your ship. How do we use that?" Ji-won asked. "Let him think he's winning." Ji-won understood immediately. "Hyeon, cut power to the forward shields. Make it look like they're failing. That's insane. Do it." Hyeon complied, and the Taeguk's forward shields flickered and died. Daeon's ship took the bait, accelerating straight at them to finish the job. "Wait," Mirai said, watching the distance count down. "Wait now." Ji-won slammed the engines into full reverse while Hyeon fired every weapon they had. The Taeguk shot backward as a wall of plasma and missiles screamed forward. Daeon's ship ran straight into the barrage at full speed. The result was devastating. Explosions rippled across Doyen's hull. His shields collapsed and his weapons went dark. The ship tumbled out of control, venting atmosphere and debris. "The transport is jumping." Hyeon shouted. Ji-won looked at the screen and saw the Avari ship vanish into hyperspace. Good. At least they had saved someone today. What about us? Yuna's voice came through the intercom. "Can we jump?" "Negative," Hyeon said. "The second pirate ship is circling back. If we try to charge the hyperdrive, they'll hit us before we can jump." Ji-won thought quickly. The Taeguk was tougher than it looked, but they couldn't win a prolonged fight. They needed an advantage. "Mirai, can you hail Doyen's ship?" She looked at him in surprise. "Why?" "Because I have an idea." "A stupid idea, but an idea." Mirai opened a channel to Doyen's crippled vessel. After a moment, a face appeared on the screen. He was Avari, with the same silver skin and golden eyes as Mirai, but his face was twisted with rage and pain. "Who are you?" Daeon snarled in heavily accented human standard. "What do you want?" "I'm Captain Ji-won of the Taeguk. Your ship is disabled, your crew is probably injured, and your friend is about to come back and finish this fight. I'm offering you a choice. Surrender now, and we'll take you and your crew prisoner. You'll live. Or keep fighting, and we'll destroy both ships. Your choice." Daeon laughed, a bitter sound. "Surrender to a human salvager? I'd rather die. Would your crew rather die?" Ji-won asked. That stopped Daeon cold. He looked away from the screen, probably at his crew. When he looked back, some of the anger had drained from his face. "What guarantee do I have that you won't kill us anyway?" "You don't, but here's something to consider." Ji-won gestured at Mirai to step into the camera's view. When Daeon saw her, his eyes went wide. He whispered something in Avari that sounded like a prayer or a curse. Mirai spoke in their language, her voice like ice. Again, Ji-won couldn't understand the words, but he saw the effect. Daeon seemed to shrink, his confidence evaporating. "What did you say to him?" Ji-won asked. "I told him that I am Queen Mirai of the Fourth Moon," she said quietly. "I told him that he betrayed our people for profit, and that his honor is already destroyed. I told him that if he surrenders, he will face judgment from survivors. If he fights, he dies without trial. His choice. Diane stared at Mireille for a long moment. Then he sagged in his chair. We surrender. The second pirate ship, seeing its leader give up, broke off and jumped to hyperspace. Cowards fled when the fight turned against them. G1 let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Hyen, secure Doyen's ship with a tractor beam. Yunha, prepare the break. We have prisoners. Over the next hour, they transferred Doyen and his crew to the Taiguk's small holding cells. There were 12 of them, all Averi, all injured but alive. Yunha treated their wounds with professional detachment while Hyen stood guard. Doyen said nothing as they locked him in his cell, but his eyes never left Mira. When the prisoners were secure. Jiwan found Mireille standing in the cargo bay, staring at nothing. He recognized that look now. She was fighting something inside herself. You did well, he said. Your tactics saved lives today. I shouldn't have spoken, Mireille said. I claimed a title I no longer hold. I have no right to judge anyone. I'm not a queen. I'm crew on a salvage ship. You can be both, Jiwan said. Titles don't define people. Actions do. Today you chose to help. That matters more than any crown. Before Mireille could respond, the communications console beeped. Hyen's voice came through. Captain, we're receiving a tight beam transmission. It's from the transport we rescued. They want to talk. Jiwan and Mireille went to the cockpit. Hyen opened the channel, and a face appeared on the screen. Female Averi, young, with burn scars across half her face. She wore the tattered remains of what looked like a military uniform. When she saw Mireille, she gasped. Then, incredibly, she smiled. My queen, she whispered. You're alive. Mireille stepped back as if struck. I'm not. I'm no longer. I am Selman, the young Averi said. I served in your royal guard. I was with you when Kalrath's forces attacked the palace. I saw them drag you away. We all thought you were dead. I should be dead, Mireille said, her voice breaking. I failed you. I failed everyone. No, Selman said firmly. You survived. And you just saved 47 lives. 47 refugees who would have been sold into slavery. You saved us, my queen. I'm not a queen anymore. I have no wings, no crown, no honor. Selman looked at her with something like pity. You're wrong. You have something better than honor given by others. You have honor earned by choice. You didn't have to help us. You chose to. That's what makes a true leader. Mireille turned away from the screen, her whole body shaking. Jiwan stepped in front of the camera. This is Captain Jiwan. Your ship is damaged. Where were you heading? The refugee colony on Bayer Station, Selman said. But our hyperdrive is barely functional. We might not make it. Transmit your coordinates. We'll escort you there. Make sure you arrive safely. Selman bowed her head. Thank you, Captain. And please, tell Queen Mireille that the refugees still speak her name. Not with shame, but with hope. They say the queen who fell will rise again. The transmission ended. Jiwan found Mireille sitting on the floor of the cargo bay, her head in her hands. He sat down beside her, not saying anything for a while. Finally, Myra news traveled fast in the refugee networks. Within a week of escorting the transport to Bayer Station, the Taiguk started receiving unexpected messages. Averi survivors asking questions. Was it true that Queen Mireille lived? Was she really working on a human salvage ship? Had she truly saved refugees from pirates? Jiwan watched Marie's reaction to these messages with concern. She seemed caught between hope and fear, wanting to respond but terrified of the responsibility that came with acknowledgement. They shouldn't look to me. she said one evening in the ship's small common area. The crew had gathered for dinner, a nightly tradition Ji-won insisted on. I led my people to destruction. Why would they want anything to do with me? Yunha, who had been quietly eating her rice, looked up. Maybe because you're the only royal they have left. Maybe because seeing you survive gives them hope. Or maybe they just need someone to believe in. I'm not the person they remember, Myrae said. That queen died on the auction block. Good, Hyen said, surprising everyone. That queen lost. Maybe this new person can win. The words hum in the air. Myrae stared at him, then slowly nodded. 2 days later, they arrived at Bear Station to deliver some salvaged components. The station administrator, a Talaxian named Griv, met them at the docking bay with an unusual request. The Avari refugees want to meet your crew member, Griv said nervously. Word has spread about Queen Myrae. They've been gathering in the station's central plaza. There must be 200 of them now. Ji-won looked at Myrae. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, she said quietly. They deserve to know the truth. They walked through the station together. Ji-won, Hyen, Yunha, and Myrae. As they approached the central plaza, Ji-won could hear voices speaking in the Avari language. The crowd fell silent when Myrae appeared. 200 Avaris stood there, refugees from a dozen different worlds. Some were injured, some were old, many were children. All of them stared at Myrae with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Someone pushed through the crowd and dropped to one knee. My queen. Don't, Myrae said, her voice breaking. Please don't bow to me. I'm not worthy of it. Then what are you worthy of? An old Avari male stepped forward. What should we call you? The queen who survived? The leader who failed? The royal who became a slave? The words were harsh, but not cruel. This was someone who needed answers, not someone trying to cause pain. Myrae stood silent for a moment, then spoke. Call me nothing. I have no titles left. I lost my crown when I couldn't protect my people. I lost my wings when I was captured. I lost my honor when I was sold like cargo. I'm just Myrae now, crew on a salvage ship. And yet you saved 47 of us, someone said. And you fight against those who would enslave our people. What do you call that? Trying to make things right, Myrae said. Trying to do something good with the life I have left. A young Avari female, barely more than a child, spoke up. Are you going to lead us again? No, Myrae said firmly. I can't. I don't have the right. But we need you, the child said. We need someone who understands us. Someone who knows what we've lost. Myrae looked at Ji-won helplessly. He stepped forward, addressing the crowd in a calm voice. Myrae isn't the same person she was before. She's been through hell and came out the other side. She's not your queen anymore, but she's something else. She's a survivor, and she's choosing to help people, not because she has to, but because she wants to. That's worth more than any crown. The old Avari male studied Ji-won thoughtfully. You're the human who bought her. I am. Why? What do you gain from this? Nothing, Ji-won said honestly. Except maybe the satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing. And the privilege of having an exceptional person on my crew. The crowd murmured among themselves in their own language. Then someone stood and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I propose this. We don't ask Queen Myrae to lead us as royalty. We ask her to help us as equals. She has knowledge, experience, and skills we need. We have numbers and resources she could use. Together, maybe we can do something about the slavers and the pirates who hunt us. Myrae shook her head. I work on the Taeguk. Captain Ji-won decides where we go and what we do. Then we ask Captain Ji-won, someone said, turning to him. Will you help us? Ji-won hadn't expected this. He ran a salvage operation, not a rescue service. But he looked at the faces in the crowd, saw their desperation and hope, and felt something shift inside him. "I can't promise anything," he said carefully. "But if we hear about Avari being held as slaves or refugees under attack, we'll do what we can." "Fair?" The crowd erupted in grateful voices. Several Avari approached G1, offering payment or services in exchange for help. He waved them off. "Just spread the word. If anyone needs help, they can send us a message. We'll respond if we can." Over the next 3 months, the Taigut became something unexpected. They still ran salvage operations, still made their living finding and selling scrap. But increasingly, they also responded to distress calls. Avari refugees attacked by pirates, slave ships transporting captives, mining colonies using forced labor. The crew grew. Someone asked to join them, and G1 agreed. She brought combat skills and technical knowledge. Then, a human engineer named Timan signed on, fascinated by Murray's tactical thinking. A Raxian pilot named Cora joined, wanting to fight against slavers after her own family was taken. The Taigut had to upgrade to a larger ship, then larger still. What started as a crew of 4 became a crew of 15, then 30. They pooled resources, shared skills, and learned from each other. And Murray changed. Slowly, carefully, like ice melting in spring. She still refused to call herself a queen, but she planned their operations with brilliant tactical precision. She trained the crew in combat and strategy. She spoke to refugees and gave them hope, not through grand speeches, but through simple presence. G1 watched her transform and felt pride mixed with concern. The galaxy was taking notice. Stories spread through the refugee networks. The fallen queen who served on a human ship. The legend who chose equality over royalty. The symbol of resistance died. Then the messages started arriving from other species. Humans who had lost family to slavers. Talaxians who opposed the Voskan expansion. Even some Raxians who saw opportunity in the chaos. They wanted to join. They wanted to help. They wanted to be part of something that mattered. One night, 6 months after leaving Talek Station, G1 found Murray standing in the hangar bay of their new ship, looking at the 5 smaller vessels they now commanded. A small fleet, cobbled together from salvage and donations, crewed by outcasts and believers. "This is getting bigger than I expected," G1 said. Murray nodded. "We've freed over 300 slaves. We've destroyed 7 pirate operations. We've given hope to thousands of refugees. But it's not enough. For every person we save, 10 more are captured. We can't save everyone. I know. But we can save someone. And someone is always worth fighting for." She looked at him. "You taught me that. I just gave you a job." "You gave me a choice," Murray corrected. "And I chose this. Not because I'm a queen, but because I'm alive, and that means something. Every person we save, every slaver we stop, every refugee we help, it all means something." G1 smiled. "You sound like a leader." "I sound like crew," Murray said. "Good crew learns from good captains." Before G1 could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Hyan's voice came through the intercom, urgent and stressed. "Captain, we have a situation. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Voskan signatures. Lots of them." G1 and Murray ran to the bridge. The tactical display showed 15 Voskan warships surrounding their position. Heavy cruisers, armed and ready for combat. The Tadygak and its small fleet were completely outmatched. A transmission came through. G1 already knew who it would be. Kalrath's face filled the screen, his forearms crossed in satisfaction. "Greetings, Captain G1, and greetings to the Queen who won't die. I must admit, I'm impressed. I thought I had broken you completely, Murray, but it seems humans have a talent for fixing broken things. What do you want, Kalrath?" G1 asked. What I should have done from the beginning. Complete destruction. You've become an annoyance, human. You and your pet queen have freed too many slaves, disrupted too many operations, inspired too many foolish rebels. The Voskin Accord has decided you're bad for business. So you brought an entire fleet to deal with one salvage operation? Myre said. We must frighten you more than you admit. Calrath's expression darkened. You should have died with dignity, Myre. Instead, you chose to become a symbol of resistance. Symbols are dangerous. They give people hope, and hope makes slaves difficult to control. So I'm going to erase you, completely. Your ships, your crew, your legacy. All of it. You can try, Jiwan said calmly, though his heart was racing. I'll do more than try. But first, I want you to understand something. Every person you saved, I'm going to recapture them. Every operation you disrupted, I'm going to rebuild it twice as strong. Everything you fought for will turn to ash, and you'll die knowing you failed again. The transmission cut off. The Voskin ships began charging weapons. Hyen looked at Jiwan. Orders, Captain? Jiwan looked at his crew. Hyen, calm and ready. Yunha, already preparing for casualties. Soman, standing at attention. Teemin, Korra, and 30. The transmission went out before the first shots were fired. Every refugee network, every resistance cell, every corner of the galaxy where people had heard the story of the fallen queen and the human captain. The message was simple. This is Captain Jiwan of the Taiguk. We are under attack by Voskin forces. 15 warships against our small fleet. We probably won't survive. But we want you to know that every person we saved mattered. Every slave we freed made a difference. Don't stop fighting. Don't stop hoping. Don't let them win. Then they ran. The Taiguk and its fleet of 5 ships accelerated toward the Hekron Rift. Engines pushed beyond safe limits. Behind them, Calrath warships gave chase, firing as they closed the distance. Shields at 40%. Ion called out as plasma fire raked across their hull. Keep going, Jiwan shouted. We just need to reach the rift. The spatial anomaly appeared on their screens like a wound in space itself. Reality twisted and bent around it, creating patterns that hurt to look at. No sane pilot would fly into that deliberately. They're not following, Somin reported from the sensor station. The Voskin ships are holding position. They think we're going to die in there anyway, Myre said. They're probably right. Then we die doing something impossible, Jiwan said. Everyone, prepare for spatial distortion. This is going to be rough. The Tadiguk hit the edge of the rift and reality went insane. The ship bucked and twisted, gravity shifting in random directions. Jiwan fought the controls, trying to keep them on some kind of course, but navigation was meaningless here. Space folded in on itself. Distances became suggestions rather than facts. We're losing ships. Korra screamed. 2 vessels just vanished. Stay together, Jiwan ordered. Link your navigation systems to ours. Follow our exact path. But the rift didn't care about orders or courage. It was a force of nature, uncaring and absolute. Another ship disappeared, torn apart by spatial stress. Then another. Only the Taiguk remained, its hull groaning under impossible forces. Jiwan felt blood running from his nose as the pressure built. Beside him, Hyen was unconscious, and Yunha was desperately trying to keep injured crew members alive. Myre gripped the edge of the tactical station, her silver skin pale. Captain, we can't survive much longer. The hull is breaking apart. I know, Jiwan gasped. I know, but we're not dead yet. Ah. Then something changed. The chaos around them suddenly stabilized, forming a tunnel through the distorted space. Jiwan didn't question it. He aimed for the tunnel and pushed the engines to maximum. They shot through the rift and emerged into normal space on the other side. The ship's alarms were screaming. Half their systems were offline, and they had lost 4 of their 5 escort ships. But they were alive. "Status report," G1 croaked. Ian came to, blinking blood from his eyes. "We're in the Telvex system. Right back where we started. The orbital station is right there." G1 stared at the view screen in disbelief. Telvec Orbital Station, the place where he had bought my race 6 months ago. They had crossed half the galaxy in a matter of minutes, pulled through by the rift's impossible physics. "The Voskan fleet?" he asked. "No sign of them," Selman said. "They can't follow us through the rift, but Captain, we're receiving thousands of transmissions. From everywhere. The message we sent, it spread across the entire galaxy." "Show me." The communications console lit up with incoming messages. Hundreds. Thousands. Then tens of thousands. Voices from a dozen species, all saying the same thing. "We're coming. You inspired us. We won't let you fight alone. Tell us where to go." G1 felt tears running down his face. They had sent their message expecting to die. Instead, they had lit a fire. "Captain," Myrae said, her voice shaking. "Ships are arriving. Lots of ships." The view screen showed vessels dropping out of hyperspace. Salvage ships like the Taiguk. Merchant vessels. Small personal craft. Even a few military ships, probably deserters or rebels. They weren't warships. They weren't organized. But there were hundreds of them, and more arriving every minute. A transmission came through. The face on the screen was human, an old woman with gray hair and fierce eyes. "This is Captain Nari of the Songbird. We heard your message. We're here to help. What do you need?" Before G1 could answer, another transmission overlaid the first. Then another. Then dozens more. All asking the same question. "What do you need? How can we help? Where do we go?" Myrae looked at G1. "They're looking to us for leadership. What do we tell them?" G1 thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "We tell them the truth. We're not an army. We're not a government. We're just people who are tired of watching others suffer. And together, maybe we can actually change something." He opened a wide band channel, broadcasting to all the ships gathering around them. "This is Captain G1. Thank you for coming. I won't lie to you. What we're doing is dangerous. The Voskan Accord has resources we can't match. They have warships, armies, and the backing of corrupt officials across the galaxy. But they also have a weakness. They rely on fear and slavery. They think people are resources to be exploited. And we're going to prove them wrong." More ships arrived as he spoke. The space around Talvik Station was filling with vessels of every size and type. "We're not going to fight them head on," G1 continued. "We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to be stubborn, creative, and absolutely refuse to give up. We're going to free every slave we can find. We're going to disrupt every operation they run. We're going to make slavery so expensive and so dangerous that it's not worth doing anymore." Myrae stepped beside him, and G1 gestured for her to speak. She hesitated, then leaned toward the microphone. "I am Myrae. Some of you know me as a queen. I'm not anymore. I'm crew on the Taiguk, and I'm proud of that. I lost everything once. My crown, my wings, my honor. A human salvage captain gave me something better. He gave me choice. He gave me purpose. He showed me that what we are isn't determined by what we've lost, but by what we choose to do next." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, carrying the weight of someone who had been broken and rebuilt themselves. "The Voskan thought they broke me when they cut off my wings and sold me as a slave. They thought they had won, but they gave me to someone who refused to see me as broken. And now I'm part of something bigger than any crown. We all are. Every person here chose to come, chose to fight, chose to care. That's more powerful than any empire. The communications channels erupted with cheers and shouts of agreement. Someone pulled up a tactical display. Captain Myray, Captain G1 were receiving intelligence reports. 17 slave operations in this sector alone. Mining colonies, pleasure houses, labor camps. Thousands of people held against their will. Then we have work to do, G1 said. But we do this smart. Myray, you're our tactical coordinator. Organize the fleet into strike teams. Hyan, work with the other engineers to set up supply lines. Yunha, establish medical support networks. Everyone else, find your skills and put them to use. Over the next week, chaos transformed into organization. The fleet that had gathered by chance became something resembling a coordinated force. Not military, but effective. Ship captains shared information, resources pooled, and strategies formed. Myray worked tirelessly, coordinating strike teams and planning operations. She refused to call herself a leader, insisting she was just crew, but everyone looked to her anyway. Not because of her former title, but because of her brilliance and dedication. They struck the first slave operation on the third day. A mining colony using a very forced labor. 3 ships went in, disabled the guards, freed 200 slaves, and were gone before reinforcements could arrive. No deaths. Clean operation. The second operation was a transport ship carrying captives to market. They intercepted it, freed the prisoners, and sent the slavers running in escape pods. The third, fourth, fifth. Word spread. The coalition, people started calling them. A loose network of ships and crews dedicated to fighting slavery and oppression. No government backing, no official recognition. Just people who chose to care. Then Kalrath came. He arrived with his fleet, expecting to find the wreckage of the Taiguk. Instead, he found hundreds of ships organized around Talvik Station. The very station where he had humiliated Myray now served as the coalition's base. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Kalrath's transmission was full of rage. You should be dead. The rift should have killed you. We're harder to kill than you thought, G1 replied calmly. Leave now, or find out just how hard. You have civilian ships and salvagers. I have warships and trained warriors. You have warriors who fight for pay, Myray said, stepping into view. We have people who fight for each other. That makes all the difference. Kalrath's 4 arms trembled with fury. I will destroy you. I will burn every ship in your fleet. I will recapture every slave you freed. I will erase you from history. You already tried that, Myray said quietly. You cut off my wings. You sold me as cargo. You told me I was nothing without honor or a crown. But you were wrong. I didn't need those things. I just needed people who believed in doing what's right. She leaned forward, her golden eyes burning. You want to erase us from history? Too late. We've already changed it. Every slave we've freed tells others. Every operation we've disrupted inspires more resistance. Every person who joins us proves that your way is dying. You can destroy our ships, but you can't destroy our choice.